Start the webinar.
All right.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the webinar. I am Shannon Grimsley, Assistant Director of External Training and Partnerships for the Woodward Hines Education Foundation, and we're glad to have y'all here this morning. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. I just want to let y'all know that during the presentation, this is a webinar, but so we can't see or hear you, but during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat box to communicate directly with the panelist, and we'll be monitoring that Q&A and the chat during that, and we will ask the presenters any questions that they have along the way. So the next thing we want to do is we want to launch a poll very quickly, just as folks are getting in. So I believe Chelsea has launched our poll. And our poll question is, what date or dates will the MAP application and the FAFSA open? So you have three choices. They will both open on December 1st, 2025. MAP will open October 1st, 2025, and FAFSA will open on December 1st, 2025, or they will both open on October 1st, 2025. So we are monitoring our answers there. Give it a few more seconds to let everyone answer. All right. So I think we can show our results. It looks like most everyone answered correctly and answered correctly saying that both the MAP application, which is the Mississippi Aid application, and the FAFSA will all open on the same date of October 1. Can I get an amen? Right? We're going to open on time this year. So everybody will be October 1, and we'll talk more about that shortly. All right, so we just again want to go over just a few housekeeping slides, or a few more of the housekeeping slides again with you all. Okay. All right, so I am Shannon Grimsley, and I'm the Assistant Director of External Training and Partnerships for the Woodward Hines Education Foundation and the Get to College program. We are recording today's session, and we will send a link to anyone who is registered. So for those watching today's webinar, today's date is August the 26th, 2025. And the material in this webinar is current through the 25-26 school year. I can't believe we're already in the 25-26 school year, but here we are. So your agenda for the day is up on the screen. We've already done the introduction. We will introduce you to the guest presenters. We will then have our presentation on federal, state, and MDE updates, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end, and then we'll go over any upcoming webinars at the end. So just a little bit about who we are. Want to share a little bit of background on Get to College and a few more logistics about the webinar before we get started. So Get to College is a nonprofit program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. We have 4 centers in Mississippi, one in Jackson, one in Ocean Springs, one in South Haven, and our newest center, which you will see coming to a city near you possibly, is our mobile center. Yes, we now have a Get to College center on wheels. So we will be traveling around Mississippi in that 4th center, the mobile center. So be looking for that to come soon. We're very excited to have that as an addition. And what we do here at Get to College is that we help parents, students, and high school counselors and educators with all aspects of college planning and financial aid. And all of our services are 100% completely free. In our centers, we offer personalized college counseling appointments where we can tell students when to apply for admission and scholarship, help them fill out their FAFSA, or advise on essay writing and interviewing. All right, so as we mentioned earlier during the webinar, we cannot see or hear you, but we do ask that you ask us questions through the Q&A or the chat at any time. Chelsea Williams, my colleague, will be monitoring and replying to that Q&A today. And again, we will have some time at the end of each section of the presentation and at the end to have our presenters answer any of your questions. So today's presentation features 3 speakers, and I'd now like to introduce those guest speakers to you for the day. Our first speaker is April Washington. April is the Deputy Director of the Office of Student Financial Aid at Mississippi's Institutions of Higher Learning, where she oversees statewide grant and loan programs. With over 15 years of experience in financial aid administration and federal service, she specializes in policy implementation, program management, and student-focused solutions that expand access to higher education. So welcome, April. We're glad to have you here today. Our second presenter is Makisha Adams. Ms. Adams serves as the Executive Director of Secondary Education for the Office of Curriculum and Instruction at the Mississippi Department of Education. In this capacity, she oversees the development, implementation, and evaluation of the state's curriculum in math, language arts, science, history, fine arts, and world languages, as well as the state's innovative programs. She and her team of 5 content specialists and 1 director of school counseling plan curriculum, create instructional materials, provide trainings to district and schools, and align them to state educational standards, and analyze student data to drive curriculum changes. Prior to assuming this role in July of 2024, Makisha spent 24 years in public education serving as a teacher, a curriculum specialist, and then the last 8 years as a middle school assistant principal. In this role, she primarily supported language arts, gifted, and intervention teachers. She delivered numerous professional presentation topics on the staff of educational best practices. Makisha is a native of Fannin, Mississippi, and graduated from Northwest Rankin High School. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English from Tougaloo College and a Master's of Art in Teaching and an Educational Specialist degree in Education Leadership from Mississippi College. And she's a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome, Makisha. We are so glad to have you here today. Our third presenter is Morley Keller. Morley currently serves as Senior Consultant for the National College Attainment Network. Ms. Keller provides professional development support to both direct service providers and managers to help ensure the effectiveness and sustainability of college access and success programs. She offers consultation services with advice on the FAFSA, aid policy, governance issues, programming, data collection, and financial aid. Morley also delivers trainings on the FAFSA completion process. She holds a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in higher education administration, both from The Ohio State University. A former financial aid coordinator at OSU, Ms. Keller has extensive experience in student financial aid. In her time in the Columbus, Ohio-based NCAN program, I Know I Can, Ms. Keller developed a program with K-12 early college awareness programming, developed a comprehensive college advising program, administered a last dollar grant program, and created a college retention program for the program participants. Ms. Keller is a member of the Ohio Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, the Ohio Association of College Admissions Counselors, and currently serves on the Ohio ACT Council. And let me tell you, we could not do our jobs here at Get to College without these 3 ladies who are on our presentation today. So we are so glad to have you all here. And I am going to turn the presentation over first to Morley to talk about all things federal aid.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you. Morley Keller, Senior Consultant at NCAN. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. I am going to talk a little bit about all the federal policy changes that came as a result of the Reconciliation Act that was passed in July. So the first area I'm going to talk about are some things coming related to the Pell Grant. First and foremost, one thing that we are very excited and happy to see in the reconciliation bill was a $10 billion boost to the Pell Grant program to assure that there are no shortfalls over the next year. We do not, Pell spending has risen in the last couple years, and they are projecting a deficit. And so this shortfall funding should eliminate that, which would mean no changes to eligibility or award amounts for the students. The one additional thing it's not actually changing, it's going to be automated is the best way I can say this. People are asked a question about foreign income on the FAFSA. And now that foreign income figure is going to automatically, if anyone enters that on the FAFSA, be added to the AGI so that when they compare it to the poverty tables, they will be using a combination of AGI and foreign income. That has been happening over the last couple years, except it was a manual process. Once the students' FAFSA arrived at a campus, the aid administrators were to review all the files of FAFSAs that had foreign income in them and add it to the AGI and see if it made any difference in their Pell Grant eligibility. This will now be an automated process for the 26-27 FAFSA. Students who may have a high SAI will not be Pell eligible. This has happened, and you may have heard the phrase Pellionaires. Students in the last couple years who, when their adjusted gross income was compared to the poverty table, they appeared to be Pell eligible. But when all the data was run through the SAI formula, the students had very large SAIs. This new requirement indicates that any student who has an SAI that exceeds twice the maximum Pell Grant for the academic year will not be eligible to receive a Pell Grant. So those families that are very sort of lower AGI, but very high with assets that created a high SAI will not be eligible to have their Pell Grant. Another new regulation that colleges are going to have to watch is cost of attendance covered by non-federal sources. The new legislation indicates that if a student's cost of attendance is fully covered with scholarship or grant dollars from non-federal sources, the student will not, will be ineligible to receive their Pell Grant for that period. So this is new. We need a lot of guidance out of the department to understand this fully, but this will be something that has not happened in the past. One good thing that the bill did is brought back something that for those of us that have been doing FAFSAs for lots of years, the asset exemption returns for families that do have to answer the asset questions. We are going back to where we were a couple years ago. They will no longer be required to report assets for small businesses, which have less than 100 employees. They will not have to report on their value of their family farm or a commercial fishery. So this is a return to something that we were used to up to 2 years ago. These items in red reflect changes that are going to happen or are happening in a sense right now with the 26-27 FAFSA that is currently open for beta testing. When this bill passed on July 4th, the department and the folks that manage the FAFSA had to react really quickly and make some quick internal changes so that the 26-27 FAFSA would do, in a sense, what the bill says, even though the requirements are not technically effective until July 1, 2026. That will be the next academic year. So therefore, the FAFSA that we're going to have open on October 1 needs to be reflective of these changes. Next slide, please. There were lots of things in the reconciliation bill about student loans. I've got a short list here. I could have probably 10 slides on a lot of the things that will be changing related to student loans and student loan repayment. Probably one of the biggest ones that will take effect next year is loan proration. In other words, the students' direct loans are going to have to be prorated in direct proportion to the percent of full-time enrollment that the student has. So if they are going to be less than the 12 credit hours, usually considered full-time, their loans are going to have to be adjusted downward in terms of the number of hours that the student is enrolled. The Parent Plus loan is going to have some new limits starting next year. Parents will not be able to borrow more than $20,000 per each dependent student in their family, and have a $65,000 aggregate for each dependent child. If you do the math quickly, you can see that they would not be allowed to borrow $20,000 for all 4 years of an undergraduate degree. Their max would be 65. The bill starting next year also eliminates the Grad Plus loan program. Graduate students from around the country are going to be impacted greatly by this, because it's a program that's literally going to disappear and not be an option. For students who are currently in the program, who borrow this year or have borrowed in the Grad Plus program, there is a legacy provision, and they will be allowed to continue to borrow in that program until their program that they're currently enrolled ends, or for 3 more years, whichever comes first. There will be new loan limits for graduate students that are enrolled in what we might call traditional graduate programs. They are going to be allowed to borrow $20,500 a year. Those graduate students that are in the professional degree programs, our law, medicine, optometry, dentistry, etc., they are going to have a $50,000 a year limit. Same legacy provision in this type of bill. If they're already borrowing as a graduate student, they can utilize the current loan limits. If they would, in a sense, be a new graduate student for the 26-27 year, they will be held to these loan limits. Loan repayment is going to change pretty dramatically. It's going to shift to 2 options for repayment, one that we would sort of call a standard repayment program, and then one that'll be related to income will be called the repayment assistance plan. Lots and lots of details have to be worked out about those programs. The standard repayment program will have a shift in that the number of years that they're set up for standard repayment will be either a 10-year repayment, 15, 20, or 25-year repayment plan based on the outstanding balance of their loan. So even the standard program is going to modify a bit. Next slide, please. Miscellaneous things that are going to happen as a result of the reconciliation bill. Like I said, lots and lots of changes to loan repayment policies that we will not dive into here today. There is a new requirement for institutional accountability. There's going to be data collected on earnings for graduates from the specific programs at each of the institutions. And it's going to be compared to the earnings to a regular working adult with only a high school diploma. If the program fails the earnings test 2 out of 3 years, students in that program would no longer have access to direct loans. This requirement, as of right now, is in addition to all the gainful employment requirements that institutions have to collect data on and report to the department. So, if someone fails gainful employment, they lose, for that particular program, they lose eligibility to all Title IV programs. For this version of accountability, the students would only lose access to the student loans. The bill does create a workforce Pell program. This is going to be developed for training and credential programs that are 8 to 15 weeks in length that lead to a portable credential. The program has to have already existed for a year. It has to be approved by the governor's office as aligned with in-demand jobs in that particular state. And the program is showing at least a 70% completion rate. Lots and lots of details to have to be worked out on having the Workforce Pell program. As I mentioned previously, all these changes are supposed to take effect July 1, 2026. However, if you're familiar with sort of the federal process, many of these new policies are going to require that the guidelines, the regulations, the rules go through the negotiated rulemaking process to develop all the policies associated with these particular programs. The negotiated rulemaking committees have been picked. One is going to meet in November and December. One's going to meet in December and January. They've kind of taken the new policies and divided them among two negotiated rulemaking policies. That process is lengthy. Normally, from a time a negotiated rulemaking process starts to when something is implemented, is the average is about 18 months. As you can tell, we are not 18 months from July 1, 2026. So I would just raise my hand and say, don't be surprised if at some point we see some announcements that there may be some of these items that have to be delayed a year because the negotiated rulemaking process has not completed. So lots of changes at the federal level when it comes to higher ed policy. So it's sort of like, hang on, here we go. We're going to see what happens over the next year, how many of these things can get implemented, what might have to be delayed due to negotiated rulemaking. And we will have to see what happens. The good news is the FAFSA is all set. You've already heard it's going to open October 1. It's technically open right now for students who want to do beta testing. If they go to the studentaid.gov website, they can request early access and get their FAFSA completed now. So, all things are sort of rosy with the FAFSA right now, which is not what we've been able to say for the last 2 years. So I'll take any questions right now if there are any.
Kelsey, are we seeing any
Yes.
questions for Morley?
So we have, yes,
Okay.
we have ones. They say, so will the only requirement for students to apply for Workforce Pell Grant be completing the FAFSA?
That's a really good question. I think the answer to that question is going to be yes, but creating the Workforce Pell program is definitely one of the things that's going to have to go through negotiated rulemaking. So we will have to see what all the policies and procedures and guidelines are for Workforce Pell. We assume from the student side, yes, that completing the FAFSA will be the main way that they apply for it. But you heard me say some things like the governor has to approve the programs. And so there's going to be a lot of work to get to the point that we have a list of programs that are eligible to use Workforce Pell.
Perfect. Thank you, Morley. That is the only one we have now for you.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to be giving a few quick updates on state aid. Again, the Mississippi Office of Student Financial Aid is the office that administers all the funding provided by the state of Mississippi to help students go to college. Next slide, please. As a refresher to, I'm sure many of you, state aid is constantly evolving. It's one thing that we do know. But at its most basic, state aid is any grant, loan, or other financial assistance program funded by the state and administered by the Mississippi Office of Student Financial Aid. So each year, SFA gets about $65 million to award to students through various financial aid programs. Next slide. The state offers several grants for undergraduate students, and each grant serves a specific purpose. The HELP grant is the Higher Education Legislative Plan and Needy Student Grant, which is for college-ready, low-income students. MTAG is the Mississippi Tuition Assistance Grant, which is our program for Mississippi residents. MESG is the Mississippi Eminent Scholars Grant, which is our true merit-based grant program. And FAITH is the Fostering, Access, and Inspiring True Hope Scholarship for foster care students. If you need or want any additional information on any of our state aid programs, you can always go to our website, msfinancialaid.org. And as Shannon said earlier, Get to College is always an excellent resource and can often answer most of your questions about state aid programs. Next slide. All right, so the HELP grant is the state's primary need-based grant, but it also has merit components as well. Students must be at least partially Pell eligible, meet income limitations, score at least a 20 on the ACT, have a GPA of at least a 2.5, and also take the HELP Core, which is also the same as IHL CPC. Students must also apply within 2 years of high school graduation. So as a high school senior or a college freshman, the student must apply. Sometimes counselors will receive requests from students who graduated in a prior year to update grades, ACT scores, or the Help Core in MAP, which is the portal that we'll discuss later. So the students can be essentially considered for the Help Grant. So it's important that high school counselors certify that information so we can evaluate those students. The grant awards full tuition each year for up to 4 years, which is a total of 8 semesters. Online applications must be completed by March 31st, and documents, including the FAFSA, must be received by April 30th. So typically we award about $30 million in Help Grant funds to about 4,500 students each year. Next slide. So earlier I told you students need to meet certain income limitations. Families with no children other than the student that's enrolling in college must have an income of at least $42,500 or less. We get this amount from the FAFSA, which is why the FAFSA is required for the Help Grant. So those of you who have been in the financial aid business and also high school counseling business for a while probably have noticed that the income threshold has increased. The legislature raised the income threshold just this year. So we're very excited because, of course, we can help more students with this increase. The base amount increases by $5,000 for each additional family member that is in the home under the age of 21. So we can't get that information from the FAFSA, so the student is required to complete what is called the Help Worksheet during the application process. Next slide. All right. Another change that has taken place is the definition of full-time enrollment. Since 2016, the state has always considered 15 credit hours to be considered basically full-time. Well, beginning this academic year, undergraduate students must enroll and earn, which means complete with a passing grade, at least 12 hours. Undergraduate state aid programs that require full-time enrollment are HELP, MTAG, MESG, and the Law Scholarship. You can find more information concerning the full-time enrollment policy online at the website that's provided, msfinancialaid.org/full-time. All right, there are a few requirements common to all state aid programs. All students must apply for state aid each year, same as with FAFSA. Every year you need to submit an application. There is an initial application, then each subsequent year, the application is considered a renewal application. Students must also be Mississippi residents to qualify for state aid. And also students must maintain the maintenance GPA for each program that they're receiving funds from. So this means a 2.5 GPA for the Help Grant and MTAG, a 3.5 GPA for MESG, and a 2.0 for the Faith Scholarship. As I previously stated, MTAG, MESG, and the Help Grant, they all require continuous full-time enrollment. Again, full-time enrollment is now 12 hours. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit more about the documents that are required. To be eligible for all programs, each applicant must demonstrate Mississippi residency with 2 documents. If a student completes the FAFSA, that's considered one residency document. If a student submits their driver's license, ID number, or license number during the application process, that is considered the second residency document. This is the easiest way for a student to document residency. So kind of one and done, they're good on residency. If by chance a student cannot submit the FAFSA or does not have a Mississippi driver's license or ID, there are a few additional options that the student can submit for residency verification. Some of the acceptable documents would be a Mississippi tax return, homestead exemption, voter registration card, or a vehicle registration receipt. Just know we do not accept utility bills for residency. We get that often, but that is a no-go as it relates to residency documentation. Next slide. This slide shows the other eligibility documents we need for grant programs. As you can see, most of the other documents basically help us determine if a student qualifies for aid, which is information that comes directly from high school counselors. This includes the high school GPA, ACT scores, and the Help Corps. Next slide. All right, MAP stands for the Mississippi Aid Application. MAP is how students apply for state aid, but it's not just simply an application. I call it basically a powerhouse, to where also counselors have the ability to access important information concerning their students. Authorized high school counselors like you and teachers can basically access everything you need to advise students on state aid. We refer to the student account feature as the MAP dashboard and even sometimes the MAP portal. Next slide. So how do you get to MAP? This is a screenshot of the main page of our website, msfinancialaid.org, where you can find lots of information about state aid. To access the application, students can simply click on the green button that says apply for whatever aid year. It's circled with the blue circle. As superintendent, headmaster, counselor, or even teacher, you can access the dashboard by clicking the other green button that is circled with the red circle. It reads Dashboard Login. As a counselor, if you need to request access, this is where you should go on our website. You can't see a student's full Social Security number in MAP, but it's a lot of information there and confidential information available to you through the portal. Before counselors and teachers can even access MAP, the district or private school must have an active participation agreement on file with our office. So for step one, the agreement must be renewed annually by the district superintendent. The updated agreement will be available online beginning September 1. On or about September 2nd, emails will start going out to district superintendents with a MAP account that basically was active September 1. The email includes instructions for renewing the annual participation agreement online and for authorizing or reauthorizing counselors and teachers. This process happens every year at the beginning of the academic year. If your district has a new superintendent this year, we ask that you please contact Brandon Johnson at the email that's basically right there at the bottom of your screen and let him know that you have a new superintendent so we can update our information in our system. So for step two, counselors and teachers, once your superintendent renews the participation agreement and authorizes you, you too will be required to renew your annual certification statement by proper data usage the first time you log on for the academic year. After you log onto your MAP dashboard, you will basically see this dashboard. The dashboard shows a number of metrics, including how many of your students have completed the FAFSA, how many have completed the MAP, and also whether or not they're missing different documents, such as the GPA and the Help Corps. You can also run reports from your dashboard by selecting the report selection over on the left-hand side of the screen. Periodically, we'll also display important messaging, basically as a banner message at the very top of the dashboard. All right, that's all I have to share. There's the contact information for our office. Brandon Johnson, as I previously stated, he is your go-to person in our office. He is great, very helpful. So as a high school counselor or teacher, if you need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to Brandon Johnson, and hope everyone, learned something about important updates. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, we do have one, April. They are asking if a student's parent cannot provide residency proof, but the student can, will that be acceptable even if the student is a dependent student? Specifically thinking about students with parents who do not have Social Security numbers. The student can complete the FAFSA and may have a vehicle registration, but the parent does not.
Gotcha. Great question. So long as a student is a dependent student, we have to verify the residency of the parent. So here's the thing, even if the parent does not have a social security number, we still can accept residency documents for the parent. You gave a good example, vehicle registration. We don't need a social security number for the parent's vehicle registration. They can still submit that. We'll evaluate it, and if it's acceptable, that student is ready to go. Any other questions?
Perfect. Yes, so that was all for now. But continue, if you have questions, everyone, just continue to put in the chat. I am monitoring that. But oh, one more. Okay. If a superintendent is new to the district, how do they go about completing the agreement?
Okay. Reach out to Brandon Johnson, and Brandon can get them set up to complete their participation agreement.
Perfect. Okay, that's all for now. Well, one more.
Okay.
They're coming in. On the dashboard, how can we see the specific students who are missing information?
All right, that is a great question. So on the dashboard on the left-hand side, there is a student option. So if you click students, that will give you the entire list of your students. So if you want to drill down to a specific student, you can do so there on the student tab.
Perfect. And I will put Brandon's email in the chat for you all to have.
Perfect. Other questions?
Okay, I think we're good now. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn it over to Makisha for MDE updates.
Okay, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? I keep muting and unmuting myself because I'm so noisy. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm just going to go quickly through a couple of MDE updates. Our contact number is at the end. So, of course, if you have any questions outside of the ones you have today, don't hesitate to ask us. Our first slide really talks about our vision and mission to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce and to flourish as parents and citizens. Our mission is to provide leadership through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in the global community. Next slide. Of course, these are our strategic plan goals. I'm not going to read all of them, but of course, our presentation today aligns directly with goal number 2. Every student graduates from high school and is ready for college and career. Next slide. The 2 policies that I want to talk to you about today that I think will be most relevant to you is first our early graduation policy, and then our Bridge to Career course, which just came out of APA this past Saturday. Next slide. Our early graduation policy is Chapter 36, Rule 36.7. The purpose of the early graduation policy is to provide guidance to local education agencies with early graduation options. And early graduation is defined for this policy as successful completion of all existing standards required by both state and representative districts prior to completing 8 semesters of high school work from the start of grade 8. What really was the impetus for this policy was we recognized last year when we all came on board. Dr. Evans, of course, was new as well at that time. He had come on right before me. And when we were reviewing the early graduate data, we realized pretty quickly that some numbers were skewed. We went directly to him because in having conversations, their numbers in New Albany reported as one thing. We asked him, he says, oh no, we have way more graduates than that. So, of course, that prompted us to call a few more districts to fact check. And what we found was that the numbers were off for several other districts as well. So what we decided was we needed to give schools a little bit more guidance and districts on guidance on what an early graduate policy should entail, because it was clear from that point that it was different all across the state. There are over 140 school districts, so you can imagine what that looked like across our state here. Next slide. Final board approval for the early graduation policy was just a couple of months ago on June 19th. And really what it said was that district policies had to address the following. It needed to identify the district's motivation for allowing early graduation from high school. Number 2, students' preparedness for the workforce or college. 3, endorsement requirements unless there were certain extenuating factors. The approval requirements, other considerations for early graduation eligibility, and factors that would lead to the determination of a student's eligibility. Lots of big words this morning. Factors leading to termination of a student's eligibility for early graduation. And so essentially what it amounted to was we just didn't want students just leaving. We wanted schools to work in tandem with the student and the parents to say, okay, what's your plan? What's the next steps? Are you going just to work, or is there a purpose for this? So we really wanted to assist districts in putting some teeth to whatever policies that they had in place. And what I could tell you is just this last week, we've discovered there are some districts who didn't have a policy at all for various reasons. And so this has really helped to give specificity to districts across the state. Next slide. Our Bridge to Career course is something that we're super excited about. As I said, we had started working on this probably several months ago, right after I came on board in July of 2024. And there were kind of whisperings even then that the U.S. history test was going away. But we also recognized that there were many students who got to senior year and even to graduation who the only thing keeping them back from graduating was an end of course assessment. And so we wanted to create another in lieu of option because, as you know, there's the concordance table, there's the ACT subscores that can substitute in for various tests. But we wanted to have another option that would really challenge the students, but also give them a leg up when they did graduate. And so this started with the birth of the Bridge to Career course. We also had initially planned for this course to be available statewide in spring of 26, but again, we quickly realized there were a lot of students from the May 25 graduating class who couldn't graduate. So any of you that have worked in a school, and even if you haven't, you know the students who didn't graduate, they're already upset, they're frustrated, they're feeling like failures. And the likelihood of those students coming back 6 months later would be slim to none. So we implemented, initiated rather, and requested from the Secretary of State what's known as a temporary rule, which meant that even though our Bridge to Career course was just out for public comment, again, that ended on this past Saturday, we wanted schools to be able to use the policy right now. And so students that graduated in May could immediately come back in August, enroll, take the course, and start the coursework. Okay. Next slide. The Bridge to Career course supports MDE's mission of preparing all students for success beyond high school. It offers an alternative graduation pathway for second semester seniors who have not passed one or more end of course assessments and do not meet the criteria for other options. Through focused career exploration and professional portfolio development, the course equips students with the essential skills, credentials, and experiences needed to transition to post-secondary education training or straight to the workforce. Next slide. This is the table of contents for our course. And if you are familiar with our CCR course, you will know that this is Unit 2, and we took it and expanded it. We worked with a vendor who was a teacher, a longtime CCR teacher who is really an expert in the field. And she helped us to really develop something that we are very proud of, that we think will challenge the students, but as well, as I said earlier, really give them a snapshot into what it is that they want to do. They leave school knowing, okay, maybe I think I want to be a nurse, but maybe I'm scared of needles, not so much. I may need to kind of rethink this because I wanted to be a doctor. Clearly, that did not work out for me. And I spent 2 years in college falsely pursuing that major. So I wish that something like this had been in place for me, or senior project even. Next slide. The initial eligibility requirements are on the screen. The first requirement is that the student has to be one who has not obtained a passing score on one or more of the end of course assessment, and they do not meet the criteria for other options outlined in Appendix A5 of the Mississippi Public Schools Accountability Standards. Next. Okay, the requirements, they're going to come in one at a time. Prior to enrolling in the course, students shall demonstrate a commitment to targeted remediation and improvement. So this is just not an easy cakewalk, okay? We don't want to frustrate the students, but again, we want them to be challenged because we recognize that those end of course assessments are very challenging. I often say I probably would still be in school at 50 trying to pass those end of course assessments if I had to take them. So thank goodness they were not in place when I was there. But the students do have to be committed to targeted remediation. Next bullet, they have to maintain an overall 2.0 GPA during both the junior and the senior year. Next. An overall attendance rate of 83% or higher during the junior and senior year. And again, any excused or unexcused absence does count towards this total. We did put this out for public comment, or I shouldn't say public comment. We had some internal feedback from internal stakeholders as well as a couple of external stakeholders, and we really lowered the percentage by just a little bit to be more realistic, because we do understand that certain circumstances do happen, but again, it does take into consideration both excused and unexcused. Next slide, next bullet. Students receive no more than 6 nonviolent referrals during their junior and senior year. Students with violent referrals may be ineligible for the course at the superintendent's discretion. One of the calls that we've gotten is schools wanting us to define what nonviolent is. Well, we're a local control state. We can't define as a state agency what violent is and nonviolent are. That should already have been established in your district. So if your school writes up students after so many warrants, after so many issues with dress code, then that's a referral. It may not necessarily be violent, but again, we can't determine for schools. We just say whatever you consider a violent referral in your district, that's what it is. But any student that has more than 6 would be ineligible for this program. Next bullet. Students have to assess each time the end of course assessment is administered. So just because you're enrolled in the course does not mean that you stop testing. Students have to continue to take the assessment each time that it's offered. Next. Students also have to obtain written recommendation from the district superintendent as well as the principal of the school in which they attend. Next. Okay, remediation and assessment. Prior to enrolling in the course, students who have not passed one or more EOC, that's the end of course assessment, shall undergo remediation. The school is committed to providing targeted support for these students, addressing the specific areas in which they did not meet the required standard. And schools also have to be able to provide documentation that the remediation did occur, and it should be housed in the student's cumulative record. Reassessment, students shall demonstrate progress in their deficient knowledge and skills before being considered eligible for enrollment in the course. So this next sentence is very important. Success does not necessarily have to mean that they pass the test. Success can be demonstrated in the remediation. If they are showing that they are continually getting better, that is considered success, and then the student would be considered eligible for the course. Okay. Students shall be enrolled in the course no sooner than during the final semester of the graduating year aligned with their 9th grade cohort. It shall be taken alongside other senior year coursework. So it gives you the options for scheduling. Districts on a traditional schedule or alternating block can offer the course as a half-credit Carnegie unit. Districts that are on a 4x4 or 5x5 can offer it as a 1 Carnegie unit course. And again, to be considered successful, students have to achieve a grade of C or higher in the course in order for it to substitute for one or more of the assessments. Okay. We really got busy when we knew that this was coming out. So the course code is here. It is live and active. The course code is 060805. Any secondary teacher, any secondary licensed teacher can teach the course. But more importantly than that, we want really to impress upon schools that it has to be a teacher that really cares about students. Okay. You really care about the outcome and seeing this through, because what we know is that teachers in some cases really become like second mom, or as my nephew says, I'm his assistant mom. I'm not his aunt, I'm his assistant mom. So you have to become like a mom to these students and really are interested in the bottom line, or as we say, the end game, and helping them have positive outcomes with this course. So that's a lot of staying on top of them. Did you go for mentoring hours? Have you done this? So it really is someone who cares about the students. Okay, next slide. Moving on from that, we really wanted to say the approved course codes for elementary and secondary schools. We want to impress upon schools. We get a lot of calls and emails, but if the course code is not listed in the portal, it is no longer active. We did put up a new Excel spreadsheet a couple weeks ago. We have added some updates really with just as recently as 2 weeks ago with what the changes were for 24-25 as well as 25-26. And we also tried to give an explanation to schools and districts as to why the course was changed, what modifications did we make, or if it was a course that was deleted. Generally, it was because there were no standards for the course, or either it had not been offered in a period of time, usually 5 years or more. Next slide. Okay, this is just a screenshot of what you'll see if you access that spreadsheet with the changes. You will know that's the school year that's impacted in the first column, whether the course was new, modified, or deactivated. In column C, you will see the subject area. Column D is your course code number, and then the course code title. And then in the last column F, we tell you exactly what was modified. Okay, next slide. Districts are only to use codes from the approved course code portal. We get a lot of calls from counselors and schools sometimes to say, hey, we used this code a couple of years ago. It's this code and I can't find it in the portal. And our question is, well, where did you find it? And they always produce a handy dandy little sheet, staple sheet of pages that they printed off from 2020. And we say, well, that's great that you have that, but that resource is no longer valid. And so we really want to push all of our schools to use what is in the course code portal. If it's not there, then it does not exist. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always call our office. A big heavy lift that we just finished working on because lots of districts were getting flags for various reasons. So the content specialist and I, we really did a deep dive into the course codes, and essentially any course that can be worth a Carnegie unit for a student in grades 7 through 12, we have changed the grade spans to reflect 7 through 12. And if it was an accelerated course such as IB, ACE, dual credit, all of those were made to reflect a 9th through 12th grade span. I do want to tell you that there are some courses that, due to policy or some type of legislation, are grade specific. Those courses did not change. For instance, I think there's a Foundations of Biology course, and I could be wrong on that just off the top of my head, but that course is or Foundations of Algebra, I think. It's a 9th grade specific course. That's policy. So even though it's a high school course, that grade span will just say grade 9 because of the policy. Okay. And we changed it was close to 400 course codes that were impacted. So just be patient. You may not see those changes right away, but MSIS though we've made significant improvements in the digitization of it, there's still people in our OTSS office that have to touch each course. You can't just flip a switch, change. Each course has to be touched. So just know that it's coming. That all should be done before schools have to do their first certification of data here in a few weeks. Next slide. Wanted to tell you about 3 new AP courses that are coming. This past year, we did an AP pilot where we introduced the courses of AP Cybersecurity and AP Networking. We currently have 3 schools across our state that are piloting those courses. And then, of course, with 26-27, we will see the introduction of the AP Business with Personal Finance course. Now, again, the 2 courses you see at the top, security and networking, they are only available for use this year by schools that were approved to participate in the pilot. For 26-27, all 3 of these new courses that you see on the screen will be available for use. Be on the lookout for communication from MDE about any trainings. We know that summer institutes are very powerful and instrumental in preparing teachers for this coursework. So we are looking at grants and any type of financial assistance that we may be able to offer. Again, that is not a done deal yet, but of course, if we can get some money to send our teachers, we're going to be happy to do that, and we'll communicate that out to the field once it happens. Next slide. Major clarity. This has been an ongoing topic. Back in June, we received information from the federal department that we were able to reinstate the late liquidation date, which was through March of 26, which essentially meant our monies were unfrozen, and any contracts that we had said that we were going to honor, we would be able to do that. So what that means is that Major Clarity is now available to schools through the end of September. What I can tell you is that there was some miscommunication. We had initially said, I think at Mass, on a slide similar to this, that it would be available for spring or through spring of 2026. I do want to that districts have access through September 30th of 2025. What I will also tell you, though, is that we are working at the agency on a contract extension. We have not received word on that, so we just want schools to be prepared and aware that you do September the 30th. Okay. If you have any information or any questions about that, our contacts were on the screen: David Kress and Shelby Godfrey, who is our Director of Partnerships. David Kress is our Director of Innovative Programs in the Office of Secondary Ed at MDE. Next slide. Wanted to tell you about 2 conferences that we have upcoming. Some of my team members in the Office of Secondary Ed will be presenting at the Mississippi Out of School Time Learning Conference. Even though this is geared towards summer school and after school providers, we do have several interesting topics that we will present on September 22nd and 23rd at the Jackson Convention Complex. Next slide. Some important dates for MDE, particularly in secondary ed, that we want you to be cognizant of. Any MOCA requests, you have just a few more days to get those submitted. And again, MOCA is if you want to offer an online course for 26-27, okay, that's for next school year, then the deadline is September the 1st. Any course code request, again, for 26-27, those have to be submitted to our office by October the 1st. And then special topics, that application deadline is February 1st of 26, and those are sent to the attention of Dr. Kevin Gaylor in our office. Next slide. If your school is in need of any professional development training, then we now have a form which is located here. You would just fill the form out. There are several questions that you need to answer. It comes into our office and then it is sent to the appropriate content director or specialist who will follow up with the school. And we just wanted everyone to know that that is out there if you need it. And it runs anything from English, math, science, fine arts, even to counseling that you may need. That the form is there for your use. Next slide. And my contact information is there on the screen, my phone number, and of course my email. I did see one question pop up, so I will stop talking and be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Absolutely. So we have 3. The first one, this is in the Q&A. We have a couple in the chat, but I'll start with the Q&A first. And they're asking, is there any way course changes made by MDE can be implemented earlier than the summer for that school year? Most schools begin scheduling before the end of the previous school year.
We try to get those in as soon as possible. So are they asking any, read the question again for me, Chelsea?
Yeah, they're asking, are there any way course changes can be made by MDE earlier than the summer for that? I'm assuming that upcoming school year, because most schools begin scheduling before the end of that previous school year.
Right. That's something that we really hope to get better with, which on a few slides back, I showed you the update. So we're hoping, we do recognize that a lot of pre-registration starts pretty much January or February. And so we are working towards that. It's been a process with this huge overhaul of course codes. So that is something that we will definitely work toward.
Perfect.
Next question.
The other question says, some students are finding it hard to enroll in post-secondary institutions when they graduate in December and want to enroll in the spring. Colleges want to have the final official transcript, which is not completed until May. Counselors normally provide a letter, but colleges are now refusing that letter. What guidance can be given here? Also, some students are having a hard time assessing financial aid for the spring semester. Is there any policy regarding a student graduating early accessing financial aid in the spring?
I can't speak to the financial aid. I don't think I have not come across any MDE policies that assess or that address that. As far as the first part of the question, I think that that's really a local decision, because I do know that there are schools across the state. The student finishes in December. I would just probably recommend that they discuss with their leadership or their superintendent, and then maybe to reach out to other districts to see what they're doing, because again, we're a local control state. So each district, of course, has to operate under MDE policies, but our policies in some ways can be very free, in the sense that it does give schools that flexibility. So I would just say to follow that chain of command, talk with the administrator, maybe meet with the school board to see what's available for that. You can always reach back out to us for more specific guidance, but that's my first answer right now, is immediate steps for that, because we can't really control what the colleges accept. So that would be my suggestion on that.
And in reference to the second piece, as far as the financial aid part, at least concerning state aid, we do not penalize a student for graduating in December. So institutions, they have their own policy as it relates to institutional aid, but a student who graduates in December from high school, we do not penalize them. They can still apply for state aid. If they meet the requirements and they're deemed eligible, they can still receive state aid.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that, April. The last question I do have for you, Ms. Adams, is, if needed, could the Bridge to Career course count for all 3 needed state EOC assessments?
Yes, it does say in there that it can stand if they have not passed 1 or more. So if they complete that course, my understanding is that it can stand for that. I've heard this statement that I'm going to say a lot, so please forgive me, because in education, if we can't do anything else, we can come up with a statement, a phrase. We have built this plane while we're flying it. So we built it, we're flying it. We are checking several checkpoints as we go. So we understand that some things are going to come up, but if you visit our webpage, mdek12.org, if you check that page and access secondary education, once you get to our page, over on the right-hand side under courses, you will see Bridge to Career. There's a webinar there, the policy is there, the standards are there. Once the curriculum goes back to the state board in September, I believe it's the 18th, We only got 2 comments. Neither of those comments were about the curriculum. So what you see is pretty much final there. I think one of the comments was about adding some type of it was like American Heart Association, one of those credentialing agencies, and the other one was asking questions about students with disabilities, which we feel that the curriculum does fully address. So I'm saying all that to say we know that there are going to be some changes, but you can find a wealth of information on our page there. My contact information is there. So if you have any questions, there is nothing that's dumb or crazy. Just ask, because this is brand new as to us as an agency and for the state. But we do really feel strongly about it and the potential that it has for all of our students. The policy and course was meant to be inclusive of all students and not be exclusive. So again, any questions, there's nothing that's dumb or crazy. Just ask and we'll get you an answer and try to work through it together.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Shannon, that's all we have, so I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. I can tell by your questions, we never have this many questions. So they were very engaged, and you all 3 of you gave us very, very important information as we begin this new school year. So we're very glad to start out our Topic Tuesday this way. Briefly on your screen, this was our first Topic Tuesday of the series for the year. Stay tuned for our next Topic Tuesday webinar, which will be coming up relatively soon. We usually have a little bit longer break, but because the start of school, we did our August one a little bit later. So we have one coming up again next week. So be on tap for that. And I think it's a topic that you all will find very interesting. It's called Feed Your Future and SNAP for college students. So we're excited about that. You can see that we'll continue this webinar series throughout the fall and spring semester. And if you participate, same as always, if you participate in 5 webinars, you will have the opportunity to apply for 0.5 CEUs. And if you participate in all 10 for the fall and spring, you'll have the opportunity to apply for 1 full CEU. All right, so Chelsea and myself and Kirsten on the training team, we are in high gear moving across the state for trainings. So we've already had a couple of our college access trainings. Our last one in person will be led by me in the Oxford area on Thursday. It's not too late to sign up. So if you'd like to sign up for that, it is this Thursday and it is on our website. We will also have a virtual college access training for those of you who missed our in-person. And as Morley said earlier, the FAFSA will be up and running on October 1st. Praise the Lord. So we will be out in September giving you your FAFSA 101 training. We're going to have several in September at all 3 of our centers, Jackson, South Haven, and Ocean Springs. We will also be traveling across the state. In addition to our centers, we'll be at Holmes Community College in Grenada, Colin in Natchez, Northeast Mississippi Community College up at the top of the state, and then also at Meridian Community College. So many thanks to our community college partners for allowing us to come in and train you guys on the FAFSA. Also, several opportunities for virtual FAFSA 101 trainings throughout the fall and the spring. So we'll have in-person and virtual. And then also new to our agenda, well, newish. We did it virtual last year, but we will be doing a FAFSA 201 training. And you might be saying, Shannon, what is a FAFSA 201 training? Do I need to have 101 training? You most likely need to have 101 training, because I will tell you, we will bring you up to speed a little bit at the beginning of 201. But what 201 is going to do, it is going to be more scenario based. So those hard situations that you have in your schools will be taking scenarios, using the rules, and coming up with how would we work, in this scenario area. So it is a lot of group work. We'll be having some in person at our centers. And then we'll also have a couple of virtual ones. So we tested it virtually last year, and we really think we wanted to have the opportunity to have those in person. So we hope you'll join us for all of our trainings that we have scheduled for the fall and the spring. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact us on any of our mediums. And we also have a training email, which is training@get, the number 2, college.org. So you can contact our training department there personally. So I know we've run a little bit over time today, but it was because of all of y'all's great questions. So thank you for being here today. And thank you again to all our presenters. And we are so happy that you are here today. So we will see you again next week for our next Topic Tuesday. So see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.